He's the president and CEO of McDonald & Owen Lumber, a global supplier of kiln-drying hardwoods. With several offices and facilities in the United States, China, Vietnam, and Turkey, they ship 50 million board feet of lumber to 29 countries around the world. Inc. magazine once again deemed McDonald & Owen Lumber as one of the country's fastest-growing privately held companies in America for the past 6 consecutive years. Please, men of Madison, give a big warm welcome to Dave Twite.
Wow. Oh, is that me? Is that me?
I'll take care of you.
Hang on here. Hang on. There you go. Now that you're all awake, go have a piece of Kringle. Hey, it's great to be here today. I want to thank Brent and Jacob and the other guys that are here that have put Leading with Power together. How many guys is this your first time? That's awesome. That's great. It was, I had a chance to do one of these in Wausau last year, and before the event started, I went up and talked to a bunch of different guys, and I said, hi, what's your name? He said, my name's Jim. I said, hi, Jim. I said, is this your first time here? He said, yeah, my first time here. I said, mine too. Mine too. And I said, if this gets boring, I'm out of here. And he goes, yeah. He said, what do you do? I said, I'm the speaker. So you can't make that stuff up, but that really did happen. I thought that was just like precious. Brent called me several months ago, asked if I believed in free speech. I said, I certainly do. He said, could you come and give one in Madison? I said, sure. So you guys are going to for sure get your money's worth today. My daughter gave me great advice. She said, Dad, just don't be boring. So I'll try not to do that. Somebody told me that a talk should be like a mini skirt. It should be long enough to cover what's necessary, but short enough to remain interesting. So hopefully we'll try to stay within that parameter today. They say that the number one fear, do you know this? The number one fear people have, public speaking. The number 2 fear is death. Seriously? This means that it would be better to be in the casket than doing the eulogy. So somehow I'm going to try to face that fear today and speak to you guys, because I don't know if you know this, but I thought about this for a long time. Since Brent asked me, I think about this event and I take it really weighty. I mean, you guys all have different lives, and I'm just a lumber guy, and I'm coming here and really I want to have something to say that doesn't just take your lunch hour. Hopefully there's something significant that gets pulled away. As Brent said, McDonald & Owen, we are a global supplier of kiln-dried hardwoods. We ship about 50 million board feet to 29 countries around the world. We've been blessed. We do crazy things. In fact, I'll go forward to this. Hang on a second. So some of the things, and Eric, one of my guys are here. Eric, where are you? Eric Shervam. Eric is one of our sales guys. He's based out of Milwaukee right now, but he's a Madison guy originally, and so I have a great staff, but we do crazy things. Our lumber is in the piano benches of Elton John, the Beach Boys, Chicago. We do guitar parts we have of the past of Brad Paisley, the band Perry, Peter Cetera from Chicago, if you remember him. We are in Oprah's kitchen, our lumber, and Shania Twain's kitchen. The final 4-floor hard maple a number of years ago. Eric, is that true? Our lumber was in the final 4-floor a number of years ago. So our lumber goes lots of different places. And I'm in the lumber business, which is really kind of remarkable because I was the worst guy in shop class. I mean, I was the guy that couldn't get on the circular sander, and we had to build this walnut table. So I went to the, I'm sorry, I was supposed to go to the bandsaw, but I couldn't get on the bandsaw. So I thought, I'll just use a circular sander to cut my round piece of walnut out. And it works. It burns a lot. It makes a lot of smoke, and it stinks, but it does work. I was a horrible lumber guy. So somebody said, are you a good woodworker now? I'm kind of like a diabetic that owns a candy store, right? I got all this wood, but I just can't do anything with it. I love wood because it's really a remarkable thing. It's renewable. It's natural. It is beautiful. It's recyclable. It furnishes our homes. We all eat around a table made of wood. The presidents for years have signed things into law on a desk of white oak from Europe called the desk called Resolute. It was wood that we play our sports, like the Final Four floor and all the basketball floors. Nothing resonates like wood, so I really appreciated being able to be in that business of something that we think is really significant. The other thing I like about it is the Chinese aren't going to come up with a better oak tree this year, right? So I have a little bit of a barrier to entry, so this has really been nice. If I was in like technology, I have the hot ticket this year, somebody's going to invent something new, so it's created a great thing. I'm going to give you a disclaimer up front for some of you guys that are first-timers. How many are first-timers, by the way? First-timers. Wow, quite a few. Let's give it up for first-timers. Nice work. I need to talk today, in order to talk about inspirational leadership, I'm going to have to bring in my faith. If I didn't bring in my faith, I'm going to be a bit of an anomaly. In fact, when I do these things, I always think, you better tell some guys, because as soon as you mention some kind of faith stuff, they go, here he goes, he's going to come and preach. I'm not here, my primary purpose is not to preach to you, it's to tell you the truth. To tell you the greatest transformational pivot point in my life, I have to include a faith factor. But when I say that, don't think of me as the crazy guy. You know, that there is always that crazy guy when you talk about faith. He's the guy that's got the turn or burn t-shirt and WWJ wristbands on, and he's constantly jamming stuff. I'm really not that guy. But I tell people that I'm a lumberman, that I'm a Jesus follower primarily, who happens to own a lumber company. I'm a Jesus follower. That from identity. It's not what I do does not define who I am. It's what I am shapes what I do and how I do what I do. So don't check out on me. And it really is important, this idea of faith and spirituality in business. I read a study just in the last couple of weeks on Gallup organization, and the National Opinion Research Center revealed that 78% of Americans claim they want some form of spiritual growth. Of this group, half of them felt they were too busy with their careers to enjoy God or even give time to developing their spiritual lives. When polled about their workplace, it was found that businesses that provided spiritually minded programs, they felt not only more calm and relaxed, but they were in fact more productive. Additionally, it was discovered those who worked for Christian business organizations where spiritual values were encouraged, they were less fearful, more committed to their workplace, as well they were as less likely to compromise their values. Ian Murkoff, a professor of USC School of Business, says that spirituality could be the ultimate competitive advantage. So today, I'm going to share if you said, what's the secret sauce to inspirational leadership? It's not going to come from me, because I will tell you that David Twite, apart from an encounter with a Judean carpenter named Jesus in my life, I'm selfish. I'm self-centered. I'm self-absorbed. But with that encounter, there was something that happened with that encounter that happened to me that was transformational, that when he has his rightful place in my life, I live a different kind of life. I'm a different kind of leader. I'm a different kind of husband. And that's really key. And I'm hopefully going to explain that at some point. We all crave inspirational leadership, all of us. 70% of Americans feel unhappy or uninspired in their job. 70%. Unhappy or uninspired in their job. I talked to several of you here that you have a new job. You didn't leave the old job because you were so head over heels about it. They're uninspired. 84% of employees plan they're looking for a new career this year. The number one reason people leave companies is because of uninspired leadership. 3 out of 4 would rather have a new boss than a pay raise. Uninspired leadership. An inspired workforce, they did a study, is 2.5 times more productive than an uninspired workforce. Inspiration is critical. We need inspiration. Harvard Business Review said inspiring leadership stands out as the greatest factor in creating the highest level of employee engagement and commitment. It is what most powerfully separates effective leaders from average leaders and least effective leaders. And it is the factor most subordinates identify when asked what they would most like to have in their leader, is inspiration. What is inspiration? CNN did a story. They said inspiration was food for our soul that desperately drives us to be better and be the person that we want to be. Webster defines inspiration as a positive influence or a force that encourages desire. The Greeks had different words for inspiration, but the word that the Greeks would use for inspiration meant this. They would use inspiration when they described a sail that was filled with wind. It was called an inspired sail. That was the word, the same word. They also had the original word for inspired. It literally means God breathed. If you remember when Adam, the first man, when God breathed into Adam, he inspired Adam. It's the breath of God. You see, if you lose your breath, we say that you've expired. People need to be inspired. Inspiration comes from the Latin noun inspiration, means literally to blow life upon. So what is inspirational leadership? Inspirational leaders, I believe, they breathe life into people. The inspirational leader breathes enthusiasm into people. You know, the word enthusiasm actually comes from a Greek word that means possessed by God. It actually breathes God stuff into them. Inspirational leaders breathe motivation, courage, strength, confidence into their people. Inspirational leaders breathe a sense of value into their people. So you guys that are leaders, we're all leaders in some ways, even within our own homes. Are you breathing life into the people around you? Is the place where you're at, are they breathing life into you, or are they sucking life out of you? I believe, here's my super premise. If you check out, remember this. I believe that you cannot inspire effectively unless something first inspires you. You cannot inspire effectively unless something first blows into you. In my office, I have pictures of sailboats, and I had a guy from Barclays Bank that came in one day. He said, "Are you a sailor?" I said, "No." He said, "I see you have sailboats on your wall." I said, "They remind me. They remind me of things that are critical, I think critical to be inspirational in life." When I look at a sailboat, I think that here's a couple of things that everybody needs in order to be inspirational. Ready? Number one, you need a ready sail. A ready, willing, submitted sail that's seeking some form of inspiration or wind in your life. I'm not down and out. I'm not quitting. There's something in the heart of all of us. There's something more out there. Somebody once said that the heart of man is desperately seeking inspiration. That Augustine said, our hearts are restless until we find our rest in God, until we find that breath of God in our life. A ready sail. We all need a receptive sail, a heart that seeks some empowering, inspirational force beyond our own tattered cloth of our own life. If you want to be inspirational, if you want to try to do it on your own with the old tattered sails of your own life, as much as you want to, that sail has no power. That sail is ineffective. That sail, for many of you, all of us are a little bit wounded. All of us are a little bit damaged. Some of you might have had great lives, but we're all a little bit bent. We all have issues. You need ready sails. But you also need a trade wind. A trade wind. A trade wind is that something that inspires you, that fills your sail, something that you can harness outside of yourself. It inspires you and compels you and propels you to wake up and touch a world. I also think if you're going to be a sailor, you need a North Star. Sailors would always look into the night sky, and the North Star was Polaris. Polaris, if you look in the night sky, it doesn't move. All stars revolve around Polaris. It's steady, it's reliable, it's dependable. And we all need something that we can guide our life by. Something that doesn't move, doesn't change every other week. It isn't like the flavor of the day. We just don't let our instincts or our feelings or our emotions guide us. It guides us on a path that is consistently good. And then I think you probably need something that could be a ballast or an anchor. Because in life, all of you here, if I talk to your stories, you've all had something in your life that's been challenging or hard. A ballast is that thing that goes down the center of a sailboat that stabilizes the boat when it goes through tough times. You know, if you're a business owner, all of you, if you ever been, I went through 2008 and the building crisis collapsed, right? It was terrible. Our business fell in half. And that will test you because remember, I'm selfish, I'm self-centered. But because of that spiritual encounter in my life, I did something that was uncharacteristic of me, more characteristics of that one that encountered my life, is I remember saying to my staff, Eric was there at that time, I said, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to spend $250,000 of my own dollars first, up to $500,000 before anybody gets touched. I'm going to drop my wage down to in half. I'm going to drop my rents of all my properties that we charge our business back down to cost before anybody gets touched. Now, I'm going to tell you, humanly, I wouldn't do that because we're all a little bit selfish, right? As prophets, hey, I earned this. I'm here. But somehow God did something in my life that allowed me to do the uncharacteristic thing of me, but probably more characteristic of Him. people believe you. People follow you. We made it through. I said, I don't know if we had enough fuel on board to make it through, but I'll tell you that I'll throw all my fuel on board. Let me just show you a little bit of my people, because I love what I do, but I really love what I do, who I do it with. And I think that you can't really be an inspirational leader unless you love the people that you're around, right? You love them. And when I say love them, I mean you love them. You care for them. I pray for all my people. I have, every time we even get new people around the globe, I want pictures. I want to know who they are. And I write, I get a little bio, and I get a chance to talk to them. And I get to meet with them. And I've done weddings for several of them. I've done, but my door's open to all of them. Because inspiration can't be done with banners on the wall. You know, some new thing that you paste on the wall or in the book. You ever seen that? You think, we don't really live this. We keep talking about this, but we don't live this. I think it's really got to be written on the tablets of the hearts of leaders. If you don't really believe it, please don't write it on the wall, because people will call you out on it. But I want to show you, there's my sailboat picture. This is a little picture, give you an idea of our company here. Way too many companies are really good at having the right words on the wall and in the handbook. But if it's written on your heart, it's organic. And I think that people can't fully be inspired unless what you're trying to inspire them with is something that you really believe, that you have a core conviction. I think that the greatest enemy to inspirational leadership is pride and selfish people that really are, you're here to serve me. The hardest thing, I think, for people that have had some level of success is to get over yourself and to humble yourself. I think that's where things really began to take off, when I realized that there's something bigger that brought me to this party, and I have a purpose that's bigger than getting dollars. It's touching lives. It's about building a community, right? Not just a community, it's building a healthy community of people who really like one another.
When you come here, you really don't understand what type of culture you're really getting into. The past places that I've worked for, the stress outweighed the enjoyment. And coming here, the enjoyment outweighs the stress, which has made me happier as a whole. This place has just made me so much better in all aspects of my life.
The commitment we have to each other in the good times, and the commitment we have to each other in the times of trial. I remember it was the day before Thanksgiving that my dad was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. And it was Thanksgiving weekend that we were sitting at the hospital in Rochester at Mayo, and in walks Dave Twite, who went over an hour out of his way, just that one way, to come meet with us, and sat down with us in my dad's room. It's a holiday weekend, and he was willing to set that aside to come walk with me and my family through this really hard time. And when my dad passed away 18 days later, David was able to step up in front of a packed out church to give testimony about the redemptive work that God has done in my dad's life. He used David mightily in that. It's been great to be a part of that with other people in our company over the years.
You're just free to be you here. Every day, I take for granted what we do around here because it's normal to me. I spend time with each of my employees on a regular basis, on a weekly basis, and just those conversations about how the kids are doing in school and you know, what you're doing on the weekend, that there's time taken out of your day. That's how I've been led, and that's how I try to lead.
What I appreciate most is the family aspect. People, they care about you, they ask about what's going on in your life. Open door policy, that people just really feel like they can communicate and not be scared or ashamed of what they need to say. We had a friend commit suicide, and Tammy reached out really well and really helped me through that experience.
It was 2 years ago when I was diagnosed with cancer, just out of the blue, a kind of blood cancer, and so I did chemo and radiation, and I really appreciated working with a company that really cares for me. I mean, I tried to work every day or just about every day, but I have a nap chair in my office and I would just sleep all day at work. But it was just to be able to come to work and make it feel like I was trying to do something and have everybody care for me and pray for me. I never had to worry about the finances of having to deal with cancer and all that stress of it. And I'm just really thankful for that side of it. They just loved me enough to just help me get better. I really appreciated that part of just being able to come to work while I was going through treatment.
But when I worked out there at McDonald's in Orange, I was a homeless vet at the time because I done been in and out of the penitentiary. You know, I done did a lot of drugs. You know, and when I met Dave, I was at my end. I was sitting in the lunchroom one day, and this guy came up to me and asked me how I was doing. You know, I didn't know who he was from Adam. You know, and then he introduced himself, said his name was Dave Twite, you know, and, you know, this is his company, blah, 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 blah. He started talking to me about Jesus, you know, and one thing led to another. So I started going to church with Dave, you know. Just met this man, don't know him from Adam. My life started to change, you know, just by him being, you know, being inspirational to me. You know, my life started changing. And I don't know what it is that Dave Twite seen in me, but he seen something in me, and the things that he said to me, you know, it brought me out of all of that.
I had got a ticket prior to starting there, and I was going to do some jail time, and he says, well, he goes, I'm going to tell you what, he goes, I think I find you a valuable worker, and he goes, I'd like to work with you while being in jail. So he kept me on the whole time in jail. But he says, the first thing is, he says, I want you to do a little something for me. And I said, what's that? And he goes, I'd like to have you do a Bible study if you don't mind while being in there. And I thought, well, that was neat. David Twite was always a big inspiration to me, always cared about me, looked after me, and always asked about my family. McDonald & Owen is more than just a lumber company. It's a place of happiness and love. And they reach out and touch you, everybody there.
They check up on me, and I appreciate that. And it makes, you know, I matter. You know, that's the biggest thing that I get out of this here, is I matter. I haven't mattered up until, in my eyes, I haven't mattered up until I started here. It's just, I needed this place so bad.
If you bring just people in and they become employees, they're here until the better job comes along. If you create a community, a culture, a family of people that feel loved, respected, and inspired, they're chasing the same goals, and the business seems to go on this trajectory. They're not there simply because they're paid to be there. They're there because they believe in the goal, they believe in their leadership, they trust their leaders, they feel safe around their leaders. That to me is financially, that will add more to a company's net worth, is if you get inspired people, but I don't think you can inspire them if you don't have something inspirational inside of you. I love my people, and Eric's here today. What's really fun about Eric is I would get phone calls from, Eric has a nickname, they call him Easy, because he's the nicest guy on the planet, so that he's so easy to live with. They call him Easy. And most of our guys said, if you were a girl, we'd marry you. So that's just true. But he is happily married now, so. But one day I got a call from one of our competitors, and he said, can I just tell you something? You guys are remarkable. He goes, I run the manufacturing side of another lumber company, which is our competitor. And he said, you guys do for me what my own company will never do for me. I called you yesterday at 3:30 to Eric, and he has lumber to me at 7 o'clock the next morning, and it was a complicated order. And every time I talk to Eric, Eric always says to me, hey, you're a blessing. He said, what does that mean? I said, that's a good thing, right? Eric says it's a blessing. He will say it today. That's just natural for Eric, because something is in Eric's life that he just realizes that every day is a blessing. My customers are a blessing. And when you use that kind of language genuinely and sincerely to people, it inspires your customers. We have our vision statement is everything that we do should be inspirational. Everything that we do. Randy, that guy that said he was in jail, when he did this video, it was after we fired him. We had to. But you know what? We still love him. I still get hugs from Randy. I still call Randy. He made this video. You know, usually it's clean out your drawer and we'll watch you leave, right? Inspirational is, hey, obviously God needs you someplace else. There's some reasons that we have to do this for the protocol within our business, but hey, Randy, we still believe in you. We still love you. We still care about you. I called him several weeks ago, and I said, hey, Randy, Dave Twite, oh, it's good to hear from you. I said, how's your mom? He goes, I'm just so glad that you've never lost touch of me. Because how easy would that be? You know, I got a lot of people, 130-some people. You know, it'd be easy to just lose track, right? But you're significant. Here's how you know when you're significant. When you leave, especially after you've been fired, and the owner still calls you. He still cares for you, still prays for you. And he's doing great. Clint, whose father had pancreatic cancer, when I met Clint, he was a high school student. In fact, when I was a Sunday school teacher, he sat in the back of my Sunday school class. He was the kid that would have the hat pulled down over his eyes and fall asleep in the back row. I always liked him. His dad was an alcoholic. And I remember one day I said, I saw Clint and I said, Clint, someday I started a outreach to at-risk youth called Crossfire with actually Brent was in on that we started a thing called Crossfire. I said, someday you're going to work for me at Crossfire working for at-risk youth, and someday I'm praying that you go to a Bible school, one of the torchbearer schools around the world. And it was several months later, I saw him at a softball game, and he said, guess where I'm going tomorrow? I said, where? He said, I'm going to New Zealand. I'm going to that Bible school that we talked about. I said, that's awesome. Tomorrow. Yep, he went. While he's there, I'm staying in touch with him. And this is a kid that's now growing up, and God's doing a work in his life, and really a massive work. So by the time he gets to the end of school, I said, would you ever consider coming back and being our director at this at-risk outreach downtown LaCrosse called Crossfire? He said, I'm in. He was in. He worked there for about a year, and he was going to school at the same time. And he called me one day. He said, I'd like to work for your company. He said, can I come out and do an internship? I said, we don't have internships. He said, I'll come for nothing. I said, you are hired, my brother. You are hired. I hired him, brought him out, college-age kid, and so we put him on the phones. Don't know why I did that right away. He answers the phone one day. This is really true. We have a great customer that called, and the guy's trying to negotiate with the new guy that he doesn't realize the new guy a lower price for his product. Clint says to him, you must be on crack. Instantly comes in my next guy in charge, runs in my office. He said, you better can him. Did you hear what he said? I said, I did. Yeah, that was not good. That was not good. But I don't think so. I think he's young, and I think we'll recover from this. But I will tell him not to say that again, right? We don't tell our best customer, one of our better customers, you must be on crack. So Clint survived that, and so he's going to school, and he's starting to do some sales, and sales is tough if you ever start a new job. And he said, how will I know if I survive? And first he said he'd work for nothing. I did pay him some amount on a weekly basis. And he said, how will I know if I make it in this business? I said, well, if you don't starve to death, you made it. And I said, no, I'm going to pay you more money. And one day he came in my office, and he said, you know, I hate my dad. I said, I'm sorry? He said, I hate my dad. I knew Bill, his dad, Bill, Cowboy Bill, was an alcoholic, and I knew Cowboy Bill had a hard life. And he said, I hate my dad because every birthday I've ever had, my dad has wrecked it, if he even shows up at all. He spent money that our family didn't have, and it just wrecked lots of our world. And I said, I'm sorry to hear that, Clint. And Clint left my office. I said, I'll pray for you and your dad. And it was at his graduation, I meet his dad, who I have met a couple of times. I met him on their deck of their house, and he was there. He was a truck driver, and he hated his job, and he hated life. And I said, Bill, I would like to talk to you about being a trucker. And he said, he goes, maybe, I don't like my job, so maybe I'll talk to you about that. A few months later, it was Christmas time. I'm in the mall. Here's Cowboy Bill in the mall, and he looks super depressed. I said, Bill, what's wrong? He said, well, my family, my mother and father in Dakotas are not going to celebrate Christmas this year. There's no gifts. And you know, I've wrecked it with my family. You know that. I said, Bill, can I ask you a question? He said, sure. I said, have you ever told your boys, he had 3 boys, have you ever told them that you loved them? He goes, I buy stuff for them. I've done all this stuff for them. I said, Bill, whoa, no. I said, have you ever told your boys you love them? He said, I write country western songs and record them, and it's got their name in it. They should know that. I said, they're not speaking your lingo, brother. I said, Bill, seriously, dads have magic inside of them, but so many dads don't release it. Supernatural magic. Just tell them you love them. And he said, yeah, maybe. A few weeks later, I'm at Famous Dave's. Every Friday we'd go to Famous Dave's and we'd have lunch, and Clint was with me. Here comes this truck as big as Texas, and big Cowboy Bill comes out and calls his son out, and they go out to the truck. About 20 minutes later, Clint comes back. He's been crying. I said, Clint, what happened? He said, my dad told me he loved me for the first time. 20-some-year-old kid, you want to melt his heart? Some of you guys, I'm in this room. Here's the thing, because we didn't have a dad that said it to us, and it's really hard for us to just pick up the phone and say, hey, I haven't told you this. I'm going to tell you that I love you. It's magic. You will spew out magic. It is healing. It is powerful. A few weeks later, I ended up hiring Bill as my truck driver. And Bill would come in my office. We'd talk about God and life. And he said, my God is I go out on my horse and ride around and I just am with nature. I said, that's not how you find the God of the Bible. That's not how you find them. So we'd share with Bill until he had a discovery of what it means to know Christ. I remember I asked Bill, I said, Bill, if you had 5 days to live, what would be important to you? Not how much money you had, not how many horses you had, not how many country western music. If you had 5 days to live, what's important to you? It's your family. It's making a difference in the life of those you love. It's leaving a legacy behind you. But it would probably see some eternal stuff. And Bill has this encounter in life. After about 6 months, Clint came in my office and he said, Dave, I want to tell you something. I've learned to love my dad. My dad's different since he had this encounter with Jesus in his life sitting in your office. He's different. He's really trying at home, and he's doing different. I think we don't see that he's drinking, and he's caring for us. He's really trying. Bill came in a few days later, did not come in a few days later, and we found out that Bill was taken to the hospital. He was diagnosed. They ran him up to Mayo Clinic in Rochester, and they diagnosed him with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, and they gave him 5 days to live. I did drive up there that day. I did go into the room with the 3 boys and Dad by their permission. And I said, man, can I pray with you guys? Or Bill, do you want to pray for the guys? I'm holding hands with all the boys, right? Here's Bill. I mean, seriously, the guy has not scored at all. There's 2 minutes left in the game. 2 outs. Nobody on base. Bill goes around the room. Says, Joshy, I love you. Joshy, I love you. The kids are just sobbing. Clint, I love you. Hey, Joshy, you got to start believing in yourself because I know you're into drugs, and I got sucked in. Joshy, you got to believe in yourself, and you don't have to be stuck. Goes to all the way down the line. I love you. It was the most beautiful moment. 9th inning, nobody on base, 2 minutes on the clock. He hits it out of the park. Bill lands it with these boys. Here's the good news. Success of your life is not going to be measured in the 8th inning. Some of you are in the 7th inning. It's how you finish. That's the deal. How you finish. Bill died a little bit beyond the 5 days later, singing Amazing Grace in his room. That's Bill. That's powerful. Now, Clint, when I'm here, Clint is probably one of the execs that really runs the company when I'm not there. I'm here, this thing goes like crazy, and he's there. Now, is he leaving me? Is he leaving me? I love him. This is family. You know what? You leave companies, you don't leave families, do you? In fact, if you feel you have to leave, then God inspires you to leave. I will help you. I'll tell people, I'll help you leave. Reggie, the black guy who said that I didn't know this guy from Adam. I remember Reggie that day. He was nasty and mean and had this grumpy look on his face. I said, hi, Reggie, my name's Dave Twite. Yeah, I said, Reggie, can I tell you something? We're a Christian company, not a religious company, a Christian company. Do you know the difference? Because what do you mean? Somebody that had an encounter with Christ has been meaningfully changing, not somebody that goes to a piece of real estate on Sunday and calls themselves Christian. He said, you know what, I think my mom, who was an alcoholic, one day she stopped drinking and she kept telling me it was because she had an encounter with Jesus, but I didn't really know what that meant. I haven't been able to go back down to Nashville or Louisville, where I was from, because I got in so much trouble. I got put in prison and I was not able to go back. I haven't seen her for 14 years. But my mom's become a Christian. Every time I call her, I'm ashamed because of all that I've done, but she said she's praying for me. And I got his mom's number that day because Reggie came to Jesus at our company, and he said, I said, I'm going to call your mama. I rang the phone. I said, hello, Mrs. Reggie? First, here's how she answered the phone. Praise the Lord. I said, hello, Mrs. Reggie? Mrs. Reggie, this is Dave Twite. Your son, Reggie, works for me. And I want you to know that he discovered who Christ is personally in his life. He received Christ today. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. I mean, she goes, I've been praying for 14 years that someone would come into Reginald's world. And this kid turned his life around. Mother's Day, I flew him down to see his mother, right? This guy has been, Christmases at my house, Thanksgiving at my house. I still see him. He doesn't work for me anymore because he was there as a temp. In fact, when he left as a temp, I said, Reggie, this doesn't change anything. You're still my friend. You're still part of our family. And I see Reggie. Reggie is a wonderful guy. And Reggie said, I want you to talk to a friend of mine. I got a friend of mine that works at Toro. His name is Daniel Rawls. Daniel Rawls is the other guy. Hang on. I'll show you a picture of this. Oh. Maybe not. Daniel Rawls is, I guess I don't have a picture right there. Daniel Rawls was a friend that worked at Toro. He said, go talk to Daniel Rawls. So I said, I'll talk to Daniel. I'll meet him at I'll meet him at Culver's at noon today. Daniel comes. Daniel was on Kitchen Nightmares. Ever seen the show Kitchen Nightmares? He was on the most watched episode of Kitchen Nightmares. They called him the buzzard because he stole food at the end of the program and got fired. Okay, so I meet Daniel, and he's fascinating. I mean, I just liked him right away. And Daniel, we made connections, and he was totally a con man. He used to live in this, he was an addict, and he lived in the streets between parked cars in California. I think he fled California to come to Wisconsin to get out of trouble, and probably found trouble here in Wisconsin. But him and I got connected, and he ended up having an encounter in his life. I brought him to church one Easter, and it was in the evening. And I don't know why I said it to him, but I went up to him and I grabbed him on both sides. I said, Reggie, there's some unfinished business in your life. I said that twice. Unfinished business in your life. I thought, wow, that's kind of weird. I've kind of, unfinished business. Why did I even say that? That night, he comes out to dinner with us with a couple of people. And at the end of the night, it was at a Chinese restaurant. A little kid comes out with a whole basket full of cookies, Chinese fortune cookies. And everybody grabs one. He grabs one. I said, Daniel, this is a message for you. This, what your cookie. Now, I don't even know. I'm not one of those kind of guys, right? I'm not like, woo, God told me kind of stuff. But I did say that. And that night, he opens it up and stares at it for like 10 seconds, doesn't say a word. I said, what does it say? He said, it's time to finish some unfinished business. That's what it said. The next day, my office, he comes. I said, you're here to finish some unfinished business, some spiritual business in your life. He said, I am. Daniel comes to Jesus. I get to talk to Daniel's mother, who, by the way, in California, she's a pastor. He was the prodigal. And he comes to Christ. If I had the video, I'd show you. I got it. Because when I tell that story, I say, I wouldn't believe it. I think you're making it up. Hang on here, I got to have it. Here he is. Watch this. Here it is.
Yeah, I was working at Toro. I ran into Reggie Lewis. We're real good friends. We're real buddies. And he's like a brother. Reggie never told me that he had gave my number out. But I get a phone call out of the blue one day. And this guy, and it said his name is Dave Twite. And he said, you don't know me, but would you be care to come down and speak with me? And I'm like, well, I guess it's not going to hurt to go down and see what this guy's talking about. Well, he invites us to go out to dinner. So we go to dinner after church. Me, him's family, Reggie Lewis, everybody. It was about 12 or 14 of us. We go out to dinner. We're all sitting around a table, and a kid comes around with fortune cookies. He just grabs one off the tray. Out of nowhere, he just grabs one off the tray and he says, "Here, Daniel, this is for you." So I get the cookie and I crack it open and I take out this right here. I know you can't see it so well, but this right here, and it really freaked me out. Because what it says is, it's time to complete some unfinished business. Now, can you imagine somebody just grabbing a cookie off a tray? I mean, all those cookies that are on that tray, and he ends up pulling this one, this very one out. I mean, it's actually, I'm getting chills and it's making my leg just shake because it's weird. I've never had that happen in my life before. Somebody just, I mean, you know, it's like he was a magician or something. It just pops up, and this is what it was. And I carry this wherever I go. I keep it in my wallet at all times. This is something very close and dear to me. So
you get it. It's true. To me, it was just several months ago, I got, one of our clients was into me for $250,000, Horn Lumber Company out of Chicago, a 100-year-old company. One day I came in my office, and here are two of the Horn boys that are sitting in my office with my CFO. And I didn't know they were coming, and I walk in, and I've never met them before, and one of them was named Jim and Jason, and Jim is totally looking kind of beat down. I said, "Are you okay?" He said, "I haven't slept. I haven't slept in months. I'm up here to say we're sorry, but we're not going to be able to pay you. We're sorry. I'm sorry." I said, "Would you guys mind if I prayed with you guys?" Now, remember, I've never met these guys before. Jim goes, "Yeah, that'd be great." Jason's going, "What's happening?" Right? "What's happening?" Right? We prayed. And I said, "God, will you bless these guys? Somehow do something wonderful in their world." Mother took over the business after their dad died. They ran this 100-year-old business. Dad ran the business well. Mother took over, and Mother didn't do well and had a hateful relationship with her kids. And I said, why did you put up with this?" They both looked at these little signet rings, and they said, "We're Horns." It was Dad. Dad got us in this business. We're here taking Mom's abuse because we're Horns. I liked Jim. I liked Jason, but Jim, I made a connection. Jim had been in prison. He'd done prison before. I liked him. Came in my office. Jason later told me, "Jim never talks. Jim did nothing but talk with me." And I said, "Jim, I think you're here today because God wants to do something in your life. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a strategic alliance with you. I'm going to come and bring our lumber down there. We're going to start invoicing customers directly. I'll give you exactly the same profit. I'll give it to you, to your company. Work them out of all their debt, not just with me, but lots of other people." But Mother was mismanaging, even then was mismanaging stuff that I said, "Guys, I'm going to find a way." So we went in, and this is not characteristic of me. Remember, I'm the selfish guy. But when God has his rightful place in your life, I went in and said, "Here's what we're going to do. We're going to buy the company." I bought the company, I'll sell it, and I bought it right, and I said, "I'm going to sell it back to you at exactly my price, my cost. I'm going to set my management team down there. We're going to come help you. We've got people full-time that help you, guide you, teach you, because you know how to be workers, you don't know how to be managers." You know, the greatest evidence of the reality of Jesus in David Twite is when David Twite does something totally uncharacteristic of me, and I actually like doing it, right? Because that's what the Apostle Paul said, "For me to live is Christ." Whatever happened, it had to be Christ, because it sure wouldn't have been me. It wouldn't have been me. Really wouldn't have been me. Something happened, but it was beautiful. It was wonderful. It was really richly fulfilling, because I could have went in and chased the elusive dream, and I could have made some serious cash on that deal, right? But that's not what's really important. You see, when I was a kid, I loved business. I grew up, I loved the idea of business. I mean, I thought that's what you do. That's really, life is about chasing success, right? And we all buy into that in America, that we're going to work hard and we're going to get a lot of money and get nice cars and get a country club and be super comfortable and get a beautiful wife and get some kids and family. And that becomes the be-all, end-all. That's the dream, right? That's what you got to do. If you chase that, then you've arrived. And I loved business. I mean, I was a capitalist from 7 years old. It was National Seed Company. I found in the back of a comic book, National Seed Company, and I'd sell seeds. And I had another one called Grit newspaper. Remember Grit? I sold Grit. I filled it out with a pencil and maybe had my mom help me at 7 years old, and I got grit newspaper. They send them to you like this packet of like 50. I didn't realize at 7 years old that once I sold them, I was supposed to send them some money. So it was very lucrative, right? Very lucrative. But it was something inspiring about, Mom, I just went out and I sold all these newspapers. Look at Mom, I got this money. It was like euphoric, right? It was euphoric. You know, when you're 7 years old, you don't say no to the 7-year-old kid that comes to your door, right? The kid that comes with a $20 box, little can of popcorn, $20, sure, just a minute, right? Let me get a check. You'd never pay $20 for that popcorn. You'd say, I got to have a hole in my head, but the kid stands outside there. Hello, Mr. Twite, can I tell you? We do it. But I loved it. I did that. I remember in high school, I got involved with the AV department, and I got involved with the school radio station. I became the station manager, so I had access to all the records at that time and the audio, video, the amplification stuff. So what I realized is that the high school seniors always had to do the dances, and they were using this service in LaCrosse. They had to pay a certain fee, and they were always afraid, what if we don't get enough people, we'll go broke? So I always said, I'll split it with you. And so I created Disco Extravaganza. And then I had a guy saying, Dave, would I be able to be the guy sitting up front? I'll set all the stuff up. I'll set up all the speakers, all the amplification. I'll run the whole thing. Could I do that for you? He's now the mayor of LaCrosse, Minnesota. I said, sure. He said, I'll do it for nothing. I said, beautiful. Thank you. He did. I'd come in on a Friday and collect hundreds of dollars. And you know what I did? I did absolutely nothing. Welcome to America, right? I remember I had... the seniors had the popcorn, right, that they always did. They ran the concession stands. Towards the end of the senior year, I looked in the back. They had these big 50-pound bags of popcorn. I said, what are you guys going to do with those? Are you guys going to do anything with those? Because, you know, nope, we don't know. I said, could I have those? Is that a possibility to have them? Sure. We don't. They got it. So I took the bags of popcorn, and is there any way I could come and never use these poppers if I had an idea? Well, let's talk about it. And somebody ended up giving me a key. And we have a big thing called Apple Fest in LaCrosse, Minnesota, and a big parade and all that kind of stuff. So I took this 50-pound bag of popcorn, and I had popped it up like a couple days ahead and got boxes, put ropes around them, and hired a bunch of people for $10 an hour. And we had all the popcorn sold because we were cheaper, because remember my cost is zero. We were cheaper. We sold all of it. This is beautiful. Capitalism is like a wonderful thing. I remember I went to my guidance counselor, and everybody's coming out of the guidance counselor's office, and they'd say, what did he tell you? Well, the guy before me said, you should be a doctor. The guy after him said, you should be a lawyer. I walk in, my guidance counselor, Mr. Kleppe, laughed at me, said, Twite, you're a salesman. You know, when you're in high school, salesman is like, I'm going to sell matchbooks. Is that it? What do you say? He just knew. I was selling teachers shoes and clothes. I had magazines. I was selling stuff, always selling stuff. I remember I wrote to Ron Amos. I remember the name. I saw an article in the newspaper, probably 12, 13 years old. I wrote to Caesar's Palace because they said, we're giving out playing cards. After we use them a few times, we drill a hole or cut a little notch out of the side, and we sell it. We give them to non-for-profits or fundraising operations. So I wrote them a note. I said, I want to raise some funds. And they sent me a box of 100 of these things for free. And I sold them. And I sent them another letter. And they must not read it very good because it's the same name. And they sent me another box. And so this is the kind of, I would go buy crazy candy and bring it in. I remember there were some liquor-flavored candies, in which when you're in junior high, these people are going, oh, this is whiskey-flavored candy. And they're thinking they're getting drunk on stuff. I'm buying it for a fraction of a cent. And people are paying me 5 cents. Because God knit me together for business, but it wasn't for business' sake. See, I thought the big wind in my sail was you get successful. That's the wind. That's when you impress people. My dad would always, I remember when they had Keeping Up with the Joneses. I didn't want to keep up with the Joneses. I want to surpass the Joneses. Until I realized this. If you think you're a big deal and you're impressing your neighbors, here's what I discovered. My neighbors don't care. Your neighbors don't care. The person that you're trying to impress, they don't care. They don't care. They don't lay awake nights thinking about my stuff. To me, it was not success I was looking for. It's not success you're looking for. Success is dollars and cents and profits and impress the neighbors. It's not success you're looking for. If you had 5 days to live, you know what you're looking for? Significance. I want to be significant. I want to be significant in my family's world, my kids' world, my employees' world. I want to be significant. I'm going to come here because I don't want to tell you how great I am as a business person. You know, I would baffle my 9th grade teacher, right? They'd probably say, yeah, you do good business. But if you ask my kids, what is your dad? They will not say businessman. They'll say he's a Jesus follower. He just loves Jesus. He just does. He just happens to own a lumber company. But I had an encounter. I had my time. I remember it was in my business. I was making batches of money. I remember I sold one deal that I literally was at a famous Dave's, ironically, again on a Friday. It was one sale. The company, on one sale, one profit, $1 million profit. $1 million profit. I was out, my pastor was with me at the time, and I said, the company called me and said, are you willing to do this project? And I said, I can't do it in the 4 weeks you want. I got to do it in 6 weeks. They said, if you don't do it in 4 weeks, we're not going to give it to you. And I hung up the phone. And I said, who's that? I said, oh, I got a client. I said, we'd make $1 million on this deal if I sell it, $1 million. He said, oh, I think you got something wrong. I said, no, I didn't get anything wrong. Didn't get anything wrong. They called back. They said, are you sure? 4 weeks. No, this is your last chance. I said, no. If you'd like me to lie to you and tell you 4 weeks, I'd tell you it's going to be 6. It's going to be 6. Long story short is they said yes. So here I am making all this crazy money. I remember my bonuses were 6-figure bonuses. Were like, good grief, this is kind of euphoric, right? This has got to be great. But here's what I discovered. It was never enough. John Paul Getty, they asked him on his deathbed, Mr. Getty, how much more money would be enough? He said, just a little bit more. It never really filled the sails. It never really gave you what you needed to be inspiration. It never really filled you up. It was always that selfish thing that, honestly, that you thought was impressing the neighbors, and the neighbors don't care. And so I remember thinking something's got to be different. And I was a churchgoer. I believed in God. So if you ask me, I would say I'm a Christian because I go to a piece of religious real estate and I believe in Jesus. Hey, if you believe in Jesus and you think that's what makes you a Christian, Satan believes in Jesus. In fact, he's more orthodox than you are. He gets it. The Bible says the demons in hell believe it, and they tremble. There really is a Jesus. There really was somebody that lived 2,000 years ago that lived a miraculous life, that really came to be the Savior of the world, that really not only came to be a spectator, but he can come, and his purpose of coming was to redeem broken people. And he said, I want to come by my Spirit, by your invitation to come live my life inside of you. I will come and make my home in you. I will breathe my life into you. I will come in and fill the sails with your life with 3 things. There are 3 things you'll never find apart from Christ. Ready? You'll never find peace that's lasting peace. You'll never find a sense of purpose, transcendent. I guess I finally get why I'm here, purpose. I know where I came from. I know why I'm here. I know where I'm going. You won't have purpose. And third, you won't have contentment. I was discontent. I had everything. I had a great wife. I didn't have a bad marriage. I had a great marriage. I went to church. I was a religious person. I had an encounter with Jesus where I said, Jesus, come in my life, but I remember driving up my hill. I thought, well, what's wrong? Why do I feel like there's something missing? You know what I finally concluded? I said, God, here's the deal. I may have invited you in to be forgiven of my sins, but you don't have me. I have me. I'm king of my own life. That's the problem. God, here's the deal. I want to do this Jesus thing. I want to do this Christian thing, but you're going to have to give me a passion because I don't have it. I don't want to be artificial. I don't want to be mechanical. I don't want to be the guy that just goes out and pitches the goods because, somehow we get Jesus points for it. But you're going to have to do something in me that's not from me. I think for the first time, God says, now we're talking. The Bible is a great verse. God says, come, let us reason together. Have you ever had a reason, one of those times where you sat down with God and said, God, we got to talk about this? And that was that day I said, God, take over. And I can tell you it was a rocket ship ride that has transformed my life from this day. And it's lasted. It works. So let me land the plane. If you're here tonight, there's a God who loves you, that knows everything about you, that wants to do something miraculous in your life. He is not looking to simply be a spectator in your life. He wants to be an active participant. You have a wonderful choice called free will. He gave you free will that will give you the absolute right to reject him, to be indifferent, to say, hey, I'm not really into that. He gives you the right to do that because he wants you to willingly choose him. The Bible said, if you seek me, you will find me. God says, if you seek me, you will find me if you seek me with your whole heart. And then you invite him to come into your life. John 1:12 says, to as many as receive him, to those who believe in his name, he gives the right to become children of God. Receive and believe. It's not enough to just simply believe in Jesus. You receive him. How do you receive him? 30-some years ago, I walked down the aisle and said 2 words. I do. Do you take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife from this day forward? for better for I said, I do. Jesus wants to come in, but you have to say, I do. Come in. Junk and all, he'll come in. He'll renovate your life. He'll transform you. He will give you his goodness, his kindness, his joy, his peace that is available to you on a daily basis if you let him. If you're dealing with an issue, he's the one that sets captives free. So if you're struggling with alcohol or addiction, I talked to a guy here today, free. And the reason I said, why are you free? Jesus. I'm going to start a teen challenge, adult teen challenge in LaCrosse, Wisconsin, in Sparta actually, with another guy in LaCrosse. Northwestern University did the largest study on alcohol drug treatment programs in the world. It was the most expensive, extensive study. Here's what they discovered. Secular programs are 2 to 4% successful, failure rate, 2 to 4% success rate. Christ-based programs are 87% successful. They called it the Jesus factor. So let me ask this question in closing. Do you have a north wind that's filling the sails of your life? Do you have sails that are willing to let him fill your life? Are you looking for a north star to guide your path? Do you want an anchor for your soul? There's a Jesus that's more than just a weekend Sunday encounter that wants to come and live within your heart by his Spirit, and he is the transformational force. Can I pray with you guys? God, thank you that you give us everything that we need today, and you brought these men here, and you will show yourself, I pray that you'll show yourself strong to the men in this place. God, those that are not really certain about a real encounter with you, I pray that they will seek you with all their hearts, and they will be found by you. And God, thank you that you took a selfish man like me, and that you take us as we are, and you don't leave us as we are. Do something wonderful in this place, in these men's lives. Thanks for this opportunity in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Thanks, guys.